Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to you lovely folks joining me right now over at Marvel Snap Zone. Welcome on in, hopefully you're having a lovely day, and thank you for joining me. Just a bit of a quick video today, as I'm currently on the road when you'll be seeing this, where I'm going to choose to break down for you my current favourite deck for every single player in Marvel Snap. So let me clarify what I mean by favourite. To start with, these decks are going to be good. They are decks that I would recommend if you are of the appropriate pool and or series to make your way up the ladder and climb to infinite. But they are no means going to be clarified as the best deck or the top deck. I'm not looking at data for these or win rates in particular. They're decks I know are good and you can definitely climb with, but they are my personal favourite decks to do so. So they have to be good to qualify, but also I think they have to be very fun to play. And that's kind of the key for me here, honestly, is I'm highlighting the decks for every type of player that I think are the most enjoyable Marvel Snap experience you can have. And of course, that is subjective because everyone's idea of fun is different. So as a result, if these decks aren't for you, don't panic. We'll be covering more things from every kind of pool in the near future, but for now, I just wanted to give you a sneaky peek into some of my favourites. So we're going to start things off with pool number 1, Series 1 if you prefer. Taking a peek at Pool 1, Devil Dinosaur. Now this is the reason I guess that I chose to cover this deck in the video. It's actually twofold. First of all, it meets my criteria. Devil Dinosaur is an archetype you will see seeing play all the way up until the end of like Series 3, Series 4, Series 5. The cards that are fundamentally in it are very good. But on top of that, I think not only is it very enjoyable, but it gives you a good foundation of understanding what Marvel Snap is about early in your journey. You start learning about getting priority by playing early for stats with cards like Angela, Lizard, White Queen, these kind of effects, and you get used to the kind of power level you should be expecting off big final turn payoffs from cards like Devil Dinosaur and Spectrum. I think it's just fundamentally a great way of introducing yourself to Marvel Snap. You're playing with some of the most powerful cards you have access to right now. You're great against things like Killmonger as you move into Pool 2. You're very limited on 1-drops and you have access to Cosmo. You could potentially even get value out of the Season Pass card right now if you chose to buy it in the form of Zabu, because you have Moon Girl and White Queen, and we could definitely remove some of these other cards to make space for some more 4s if that's something you wanted to do instead. Personally,
seems to run on some form of electricity.
There is always one notification in every video. You'll notice that I finish a stream, I come to record a video, and I always forget to turn them off. But noticeably, I think this one is just a fantastic place to start because it's enjoyable for folks, and you will learn real quick how this deck evolves moving forward. And that's, I guess, the last thing I want to mention, is if you're looking for a deck you can safely invest in with cards you want to upgrade, make look nicer, because you know you're going to be playing it for a very long time, Devil Dinosaur is a good deck to do that with, because you're going to play this deck again at some point in your Marvel Snap journey. It is playable at various points during Pool 2 and Pool 3, and that can lead to some lovely looking cards. You end up with things like this lovely art germ White Queen, for example, or things like this Inkified Angela, because these are cards you're going to play a lot over the course of your Marvel Snap journey, and you can tell that I have in the past as a result of how these look currently. We'll move on to my choice for pool number 2. This one, didn't want to just give you the same Dino deck. It's very easy for me to do that if I just wanted the cop-out answer. Dino's still good in pool 2, but I think this deck is at its best in Pool 2, and that's kind of why I wanted to highlight it here. This is Swarm Discard, a deck that unfortunately does fall off pretty quickly as you move into Pool 3. You start playing other discard lists, and discard also just not the best deck right now all around anyway. But during Pool 2, you gain access to Swarm for the first time. If you're not familiar with Swarm, it is a card that says, when it's discarded, add 2 copies of it back into your hand, which means you can go very, very wide, swarming the board with multiple bodies your opponent can't necessarily keep up with. This list ends up being a little bit weak to Killmonger at this point in time because we are a little heavier on the 1-drops. You can mitigate that if you like by not playing Nightcrawler and playing something a little bit bigger. Maybe you don't want access to Wolverine, you'd rather play another 2-cost card there, but for the most part, these cheap effects that discard things like Blade, Lady Sif, Swordmaster, they go go a very long way in helping you spin Apocalypse and Swarm to create boards that are hard to outstat for your opponents. And I think it's just so much fun. There's never a better time to play this archetype, and when you do get the hand of like 5 or 6 copies of Swarm, just dump them all over the board. It's a blast, and I think it is very, very solid in specifically this window between Pool 2 and Pool 3. And of course, again, as you get closer to Pool 3, you're going to have to step away from this one for the most part if you want to rank up competitively. Obviously, if you don't care about that, you play it to your heart's content and keep having fun in the meantime. But making big apocalypses, making wide boards with Swarm, and even doing sweet things like giving the bonus to Swarm from Nakia can be very, very powerful over the course of a game. So I recommend trying this one out if you're looking for a blast in Pool number 2. If you're looking for something that is just consisting of Pool 3 cards, this is where I currently stand. If you're a regular of the stream, you'll know that Electro Ramp is one of my favourite archetypes. I play a version that looks exactly like this, except I play She-Hulk instead of Leech, given that I have access to it from Series 4. But otherwise, it's card for card what I play on stream on the regular basis, because I really enjoy this archetype. Your goal here should be to ramp with Wave and Electro to accelerate you into bigger things than you should normally be able to play, much quicker than you should normally be able to play them. As a result, Sunspot often gets a chunk of energy from us skipping turns early. Ebony Maw is great to lock down a location alongside the effects of Captain Marvel and Doctor Doom to kind of give you flexibility to play into that location. Lizard is early stats to give you priority in a spot where you do not draw Electro, Ebony Maw, or Sunspot, because you're going to want priority for effects like Aero, you're going to want it for Magneto, and of course you're going to want it for Leech sometimes too, to make sure you aren't getting caught out by a timely Cosmo, so early stats can be quite important. Electro is the namesake card for a reason. It will give you your best draws over the course of a game. You'll find, for example, with this list, you can go Electro into turn 4 Leech, into turn 5 Leader, into turn 6 Odin on the Leader. And of course, that's really hard to beat for a lot of decks, so really strong play pattern, highly recommend it. Aero gives you a chunk of flexibility here, which means you can move your opponent's stuff around if they're playing to locations you'd rather they didn't. Captain Marvel is a card you can replace with Vision if you don't have it. I think I prefer Captain Marvel if you have access to the card, because it's easier to give you some flexibility. You're not always sure where you want to play with this deck, because sometimes locations get a bit convoluted when you're only playing one card a turn. Captain Marvel means you can play it safely anywhere and can always back yourself up if you got it wrong, whereas Vision is the higher reward play, but definitely can go wrong if you're not sure where you need to be moving things on the final turn of the game. Last but not least, the big 6 drops at the top, Doctor Doom and Magneto, are very, very strong at final turn bursts. Odin can obviously trigger Doctor Doom again. Magneto can pull all your opponent's Surfer targets or Wongs into the wrong places, or sometimes just completely screw a Galactus in a pinch as well. I love this deck. You'll see me playing it plenty on the channel in the future, and I highly recommend trying it if you are at the Pool 3 stage of Marvel Snap. Last but not least, there is one last deck I would like to recommend, and that is one if you have access to the whole hog. If your collection is very large, you don't have any issues with pool or series, and you have access to most things. This is one that we've been working on since we put an earlier video up on the channel a few weeks back now, I want to say. Negative Surfer Zabu is a deck that I'm very passionate about, because it just does all the things that I find the most fun in Marvel Snap. Silver Surfer being doubled up with the effect of Wong. Really fun. Mr. Negative flipping everything over so you play stuff way cheaper than it should be. Really fun. Zabu making Darkhawk and Wong cost less and picking up a Silver Surfer bonus. Great. Bast plays well with every card in this deck, giving Iron Man power if you drew it before you missed the negative, so on and so forth. Black Widow here is definitely the flex slot in my opinion. It is mostly here to make Darkhawk a bit stronger in the games where you do not negative, because those games he tends to be a little bit shaky if you don't have the ability to do that, and you really can't play Rock Slide because you are a negative deck. But the things you're doing here are just very, very strong. You're playing with 2 of the most powerful Season Pass cards ever created, and some of the most powerful Season 5 cards as well. The play patterns, final turns you get with this deck can often just be unmatched. You can often create multiple 3, 4, 5 copies of Iron Man with certain locations. Sometimes Mystique will copy Darkhawk instead. Sometimes you will get 4 Silver Surfer triggers from Wong and Mystique having both become copies of Wong. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff, and I highly recommend this one if what you're looking for is fun, and it is very good at climbing up the ladder too. This one definitely the most prohibitive, not particularly budget friendly, but I highly recommend it if you're looking for something sweet and enjoyable. If you have enjoyed this type of content, you should let me know. Make sure you're liking the video in the corner and pop in a comment for me down below, because I can do this kind of thing again if it's something that people enjoy in the future. But until next time, I have been HowlingMines. You've been amazing, and hopefully I'll see you for the tier list on Monday and the live stream with those decks shortly afterwards. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good one.